Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. We are previewing Beterbiev versus Bivol for the light heavyweight undisputed world title today. Don't forget, Saturday night, your boys are live from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in Riyadh for Riyadh season, the very beginning of it all. It's going to be amazing. And we're also on the DAZN pay-per-view. You can buy the pay-per-view using the link in the description below, DAZN.com/True Geordie. And you also get 7 days free trial of DAZN for any pay-per-view purchase. It's going to be sick, lads. Undisputed. This is something that used to be so rare until Turkey Al Sheikh decided, actually, I'm going to change the whole game of boxing up. We're going to see this very regularly now. Joy, are you leaning one way or another?
Yeah, I am. And I think with like elite fighters coming together, it can be really hard to lean one way or the other, because ultimately you're looking for cracks in an armor that hasn't really showed cracks many times in the past, if ever in the past, especially in this one with both guys being unbeaten. But when you really hold the magnifying glass to it and you really look deeper into the fight, I think that the main question mark and the main thing that I've got to look at here is the possibility that Beterbiev is starting to slow down. 39 years old, he's approaching 40, he's coming off the back of surgery. And do you know what? What goes under the radar here is he's coming off the back of surgery for the second fight running, isn't he? It's not the first time he's coming off the back of surgery for a fight. This one's already been postponed because of injury, meaning that in over 2 years, right, and this fascinated me, in over 2 years, Beterbiev's completed 12 championship rounds of boxing. And in the same time frame as him doing that, Bivol has completed 42 rounds of boxing in that time frame, as well as being the younger man. And then not only that, to add it on to what I'm saying about age starting to be a factor here, in the past 5 years, he's had 5 cancelled fights. Beterbiev. So the injuries are starting to rack up. And when you see a fighter that is blasting his way through opponents, let's have it right, 20 knockouts, 20 stoppages, I think, in his last 20 fights. When you see a fighter with that style, if I go back through history tells me that sort of explosiveness doesn't always age that well in comparison to a fighter whose method of victory is maybe cruising his way to points decisions and not getting hit in the process of doing so. So I do think that would make me lean towards Bivol at this moment in time. Now, I think that ultimately, if you were to ask me a prime for prime version, I'm then going to lean towards Beterbiev. But I think that maybe the timing of the fight could be the decisive factor in this one if I had to hedge my bets.
One thing I found really interesting after coming off of the back of the Wembley edition card is that, much like Dubois versus AJ, these were both on the Russian squad together. And Beterbiev was top dog and Bivol was the junior.
Yeah.
And there's been a few interviews where Beterbiev goes, you ask Bivol what happened? Just ask him, and he's given it the king vibe. Is Bivol going to be able to be the king slayer in there? And what's really interesting isn't just the injuries for me, it's where the injuries are. It was a knee injury. Now, if I'm looking at one of the best things Bivol does, it's maintaining distance between himself and his opponent and always fighting at his range. One of the best things Beterbiev does is close that distance. And if you're at a disadvantage physically to do that, it's going to make that job a lot harder. That being said, over 12 rounds, Canelo did get to Bivol. It's just he didn't have the same power at that age. You'd expect Beterbiev to be able to put his hands on Bivol at some point. Loza, what do you think in terms of like the power of Beterbiev? Because they say power's the last thing to go. He's getting older, but surely at some point he's going to land on Bivol.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors to kind of look at with this scenario because, yes, Beterbiev's aging, and Joey mentioned about, explosive styles, but what people don't kind of take in consideration is Beterbiev's more than just an explosive fighter. I think people look at his power and think all he is a big puncher, but his boxing IQ, the way he cuts fighters down, and he doesn't do it in like some fighters who are explosives who kind of, it's all just reflexes punches and, explosiveness, he does it in such a cute way. He cuts you off before you know it. He's on top of you, and he does it in such a good way. And it's all very calculated, and he doesn't wind his shots up. I wouldn't even say he's the quickest of puncher, but he's the type of guy, he doesn't need to really put much on his shots. He can just rotate his wrists, a couple of inches, and he can destroy people. So the age factor definitely plays its part. But, if when you look at history, the likes of Roy Jones, for example, that's what I call a classic case of explosive, reflex-based fighter. Them type of fighters don't really, age very well, because as them reflexes slow down, that's what they've been all about the whole career. Whereas I don't see Beterbiev as being that fighter. He's a bit more like a Triple G, who's a bit more slower pace. He kind of hunts you down. He's really good at cutting the ring off. And again, not the quickest of puncher. So I think his style does age a little bit better, should I say. And like we say, Bivol isn't the biggest of puncher because he doesn't really set his feet, because he's a mover. And, I'm not saying that he can't punch, because he can definitely gain your respect. But someone like Beterbiev, I'm just not sure if he's got that power. So I think there's so many different things to kind of look at. I think the main thing I'm kind of focusing on is Beterbiev's knee going to play its part? I don't think the age right now, because he's not really showing any signs that he's aging. And we know, father time can just happen overnight. So he might just get in there and we might see a huge change. But right now, I can't bet against Beterbiev right now. And I just think, unless that knee's, the big problem, I don't think the age is going to be the factor. I think it's a case of, can Dmitry Bivol, hit him hard enough to really gain his respect? And I'm really not sure. That's going to be the deciding factor for me, because, you can kind of hide from Beterbiev for so long, but, dancing around and moving around the ring, for 12 rounds against someone like Beterbiev, who's, there's nobody does the whole stalking thing better than him. And with the power punches that he can deliver, it's second to none.
It does feel like the unstoppable force meets the immovable object, in that they're both such determined, mentally strong fighters. Like, I thought that Bivol would have been a bit overawed by the pressure of being up against Canelo, and he just bossed him there. He was the ring general. KG, are you leaning one way or another, mate?
Absolutely. And I have to say, Beterbiev, extremely. The reason why I'm saying that is similar to what Lawrence was saying. What people forget, I see him as the Crawford of his division, because Crawford's what we don't understand is that counter punching that he has. People don't really speak about it because of the knockout power. So I think they put him in a fighter. They almost class him as a fighter that doesn't have the IQ when he does. It's not a surprise that he's getting to fighters and their fights end in devastating fashion. But one of the things that I noticed that was a tell for me is the last time we saw Bivol. Remember Bivol fought Riyadh season? We were there, and it was that Malik Zinad. Yeah. And that was, what was interesting about that fight is that was you guys noticed it, but it was a different Bivol. It's almost like he's preparing himself for the type of war that he's going to have. We've never seen Bivol get so animated, so angry. So he knows he needs that level of aggression because of what he's actually going to experience in Beterbiev. And now when you're saying they have experience, they know what their spars have been like, and he knows what he's going to go against. He always has to match ferocity with the equal level of ferocity in this kind of fight that he's going against. But then why Beterbiev has been really intelligent is the fighter that he brought in for sparring is Craig Richards. Craig Richards pushed Bivol. Craig Richards is a thinking type fighter. So it's a great sparring partner to pick if you're thinking, well, who am I going to fight that's a bit elusive, likes to take his time, and he's a thinking man. He's a chess man. And that's what Craig is. Craig can offer stuff. Craig offers a lot as well. We probably get a better Craig maybe in the gym probably. But then that's a good progressive person to go against. If I'm preparing for Bivol, Craig Richards is my character that I'm looking for. And I'm saying, how do I get the best of me while pushing him and using that same level of aggression? And I honestly feel that this is where we're heading. And you've seen in the last time Bivol came out, it was against Linden, right? And you could see he was almost driven again for the finish. I think he gets him out in the 11th. Is it the 11th round or something like that?
Drops him in the last, I think. Drops him in the last.
See, I think Bivol has had to change his makeup a lot for this fight. And Beterbiev is just being himself. This is why I really fancy Beterbiev because, mate, one thing for sure is we know we're going to get to him. We know we got the power to hurt him. And when, as Anthony Yard describes it, when that guy hits you, he said he's never been hit by anything else that hard in his life. He said when he hits you, it feels like you've been hit by a train. It feels like I felt it. I was like, okay. And he hit him back and they both kind of laughed at each other. But these are probably the two hardest hitting punchers in the division. Bivol's, it's a long night, but one thing I do know for sure why this fight is really exciting is Bivol's not Bivol's not going to show respect. He's almost going to Dubois it, how Dubois treated AJ. He's building himself up when Dubois sitting on the count, sitting in front of AJ and says, you can't intimidate me. You can't do that to me. I feel Bivol's been trying to prove that to himself in all the fights. Well, the two fights leading up to this moment. Aggression, ready to match whatever he's doing.
One mistake Beterbiev could make is thinking that because I bullied you when you were a kid, I'm going to have the drop on you now. This is a whole nother
different
athlete.
kid.
And in my opinion, if I'm going based off pure boxing skill and not, athleticism and just raw power, I'd probably lean towards Bivol being the more complete, well-rounded boxer. And that's why his game plan is absolutely vital, in my opinion. If he tries to stand for too long, he's going to pay the price, in my opinion. He needs to think about winning a decision from the get-go and plan for it. If you try and do a bit of both, it'll be your undoing, in my opinion, because one thing that really astounded me in that Yard fight was there was a couple of moments where Yard really clipped Beterbiev and you thought, whoa, and the fight just changed. And I have never seen a fighter, from memory anyway, get hurt clearly and badly and be fine and turn the tables on the man within seconds. I've never been like maybe Dubois when he got hurt by AJ and turned it immediately. But that was like a freak one shot. I'm talking about like he collected his thoughts. He completely reorganized himself. He got his shape back. Within seconds, turned it. Oh, now you're in the corner, and now I'm punishing you for what you've just done.
This is another
That's a freak of nature. That.
This is another reason, though, why I'd slightly lean towards Bivol, is because Bivol in recent fights has shown me that he's able to strategize a game plan and stick to the game plan.
Yeah,
and
he's
very, very disciplined in doing so. And you could argue that the times that we've seen Beterbiev down, or even the times that we've seen him hurt, early on in his career, can't remember the fighter's name, but he got dropped early on in his career. It was while trading shots in the Callum Johnson fight. I think they're trading left hooks at the time that he gets dropped. Anthony Yard, once again, trading shots. And what happens, or what I at least feel happens, is these fighters are having heavy artillery fired at them. They land something, and that's where the discipline then slips, and they start to think, hold on, he's not an immovable object. He can be hit. And it's in the moment that not so much even from a technical aspect, just his natural attributes kick in, which is a great chin, the ability to bite down on the gum shield, and actually just the love to stand in the pocket and to be able to trade like that. That kicks in, and that's when these guys get hurt. Whereas I could more so see a fight play out of frustration for Beterbiev rather than a fight play out where you've got both men standing in the pocket and banging, which is one where Beterbiev usually comes out on top of. I think that staying so disciplined to that game plan, and almost, I know people aren't going to like this because there'll be so many people, and especially, hardcore boxing fans that will think, nah, you're a casual saying this, but there's almost a blueprint that's been laid out there in the victory over Canelo to go, right, this, although it's a way tougher fight and a much harder prospect of being able to do it, if you box in this way, then you're going to have the best chance you could possibly have against the Beterbiev.
The reason why I think this is different, and you know why you can't use the Canelo one, is this one is like, it's almost a Russian derby. Forget all the form, forget everything that you've heard before. Yard was saying in his last fight in the fight with Beterbiev, he was just talking to him. He's like, throw something. Do something, give me something, yeah? And then he cracked him with something, and he said he laughed, and then he threw something back. So imagine these guys, there's no language barrier here. They're literally, he's gonna be asking for something, and again, in Russian, deep Russian, I could only imagine what they'll be saying to each other in the ring. Now, Bivol's a thinking man, but then we've seen Bivol react, or we've seen a different version of Bivol. I think they're going to pull each other out of the usual. I don't think it's going to be a normal performance. Now, if Bivol's smart, he won't bite and he won't go there, but there's too much on it. It's one of those, it's kind of it's almost kind of, Eubank Conor Benish of this is bigger than us. Yeah. This is bigger. This is the nation that we're talking about. So this is why I feel it's a derby. Anything can happen.
I do need to bring you to a decision here. So I'm going to start with KG first. Prediction.
Beterbiev, knockout. Mash him up. And we don't mind when the knockout comes.
Okay. Loza?
Beterbiev all day. I just think the two guys, Bivol's going to have to come for it, and I think he's going to get knocked out.
Joy?
Bivol points decision.
Very exciting. Love it. Love it. I'll be doing my own prediction video, but you've given us a hell of a lot to think about. We're going to touch on the other fights.
Yes.
We'll not do as extensive as a breakdown. Obviously, this was the main event for the undisputed light heavyweight title. A fight for all the ages, this one. But we're going to go on to a heavyweight British title clash in Fabio Wardley versus Frazer Clarke. The first one was a classic. It was a war.
This is the fight that I'm at this place for. I know I'm supposed to be working.
I can't wait.
But as a fan of boxing and what we saw, it's incredible. And I had Frazer that just done, I think he'd done enough. And I feel that he has levels. He has another level to get to. While I admire the heart, and Frazer probably didn't understand how probably difficult and how hard he had to work in terms of fitness, because he had nothing left in the tank. But then the sound of fire, the ones that were throwing, I would say the smarter punches, the more clever, like setups and stuff. He is that. I feel like he can progress where we saw Fabio give all of himself. And I don't know if you lot have seen the gloves are off, but then Fabio still got a lot of swelling around the nose. And that's going to, he says it opens up for fun, but he's going to open up very quickly in this fight. And that's going to be,
does anyone disagree with KG? Does anyone disagree with KG? Or did you all lean the same way?
I leant towards Frazer Clarke in the first one, but what I would say is, although this fight is for the British title, whoever wins this fight will push on to fringe world level. You could see these guys were already probably maybe dropping down, not in quality of opponent, but in terms of ranking of where they were boxing at before. Like, they were starting to go on that fringe world level, the guys that are getting beat around that level and starting to test the waters there. And I think that if Frazer Clarke is to come through this fight, which I think with the athleticism, with the explosiveness, with the youth even, you would give it to Fabio Wardley. But I can't go against the fact that 10 years ago now, Frazer Clarke was boxing the likes of Joseph Parker, Anthony Joshua, Sergei Kuzman, Joe Joyce 3-4 times, whatever it was, in the amateurs. And at that same point, Fabio Wardley hadn't started boxing. So I think when it comes to, and Loza will be able to give us a sort of perfect inside analysis on this, when it comes to the fact that he's so well schooled in the amateur boxing, the World Boxing Super Series and things like that, this would be the sort of one that if it's not an amateur fight, but if it was, Frazer Clarke will be looking at that and going, right, 100%, I know exactly what to do next time.
Okay. I've got a counterpoint to raise a question for Loza to answer, because Loza was literally very good friends with Frazer. Nobody knows him better. So to what KG was saying is, Frazer Clarke, there's another level to come from him. He was throwing the smarter punches. Okay. The smarter punches came from Frazer. I don't deny that. But realistically, when you look at the lack of experience Fabio Wardley has by comparison, when you look at the fact that he did take it to a draw, when you look at the fact that Fabio Wardley did drop Frazer, Frazer didn't drop him. Okay. And the fact that if you're saying who's got more to learn, who's got more room to grow from a white collar fighter like Fabio Wardley, you could make the argument that actually Frazer should already be out of sight of Wardley, and this shouldn't have even been close with all of that experience that he has. And he has probably peaked already, you could say, and that Wardley is actually the one with more room to grow because of that lack of experience. Is that right or wrong, Loza? What do you make of it?
Well, I'm just putting out there, I am biased because Frazer's my guy, literally travelled all over the world. He's probably one of my best mates when I was on GB. But it's a really interesting one because it's right in what you're saying there, because Frazer Clarke's so experienced, he's probably not got as much to learn, but with that, the experience he's got and the ability to adapt, that's what he's got on top of Wardley, in my opinion. Not in terms of, skill level, what he can learn, but I also think because of that he's coming to boxing so late, it's so much harder to learn, the skills at that stage in his career. And I do just think his style, I don't think he's ever really going to change. He's got a style that works. It's exciting. But in terms of being a bit more cagey and a bit more smart and a bit more clever about his work, I think he's always going to be the guy that fights fire with fire. And I think what he's got over Frazer is the punch power. So, answering the question with regards to, did I think he win? I think the quality work come from Frazer, but the talent and the power shots come from Wardley. And, with the knockdown and Frazer also got a point taken away, I did think it was justified, the draw, in my opinion. And that's me with a biased. But in terms of who can win the rematch, I just think, Frazer's my guy, but he can be hit, he can be hurt, as we've seen. And Wardley, I think both guys can grow from so much from the first fight, but it's a hard one to answer because Frazer's more experienced in terms of technical level, but as a professional, he's not as experienced. So he now has done the 10 rounds, and he would have gained so much confidence from that. And he'll be confident in his engine, his ability just in general. Whereas Wardley's kind of got that experience as a pro, so he's not going to grow in that way. He needs to grow in the technical side of things. So it is a really difficult question to answer, but I am picking Frazer because I do think on the technical level, he's possibly would have learned more than what Wardley would have over the 10 rounds. So I do think he'll come away.
Are you agreeing with that, KG?
I've just thought something, and it's something that we all have to pay attention to. We are 3-0 when it comes to friends being in the ring and then they lose. The friendship bias. We had the first one was Joey Knight. Joey Knight experienced Fury. We all experienced, me and Trav experienced Craig in Riyadh. We all experienced Anthony Joshua. That was nasty. And that's Lawrence. That was your guy. We're walking into another one.
When AJ knocked out Ngannou, that's 4.
Yeah.
4, because Ngannou's my guy.
It could be 5. Bro, we're walking into the thing of 5. We could be 5-0 when it comes to, just disappointment. And I remember the faces. And now thinking about it now, you are going against what Geordie's saying right now, which we have to listen to, is Fabio is a dog. That's the one part of all of this.
I need to speak on this. Fabio Wardley, the thing that really impresses me about him is he just keeps coming back for more. And he is he has that. We were talking earlier about hunger, about Chris Eubank's lack of hunger. Fabio Wardley's got enough hunger for the entire heavyweight division, in my opinion. He makes up a lot in his lack of skill for that utter desire. And honestly, as much as I'm not saying Frazer Clarke doesn't have hunger, but a lot of people nicknamed him Van Wilder because he's Van Wilder never left university. He stayed on Team GB for that long. He was part of the fucking wallpaper. So where was your hunger? Because Fabio Wardley's shown a lot. And Loz has made a good point of it. It's harder to get better technically that quick. So that is going to be an issue. But, early on, we've seen fighters do grow very quickly, very fast, and then they sort of plateau. So I'm leaning Wardley, and I think it may be just because I love the dogged fighters. But it's a real 50-50. KG, are you leaning Frazer?
There's on that point though, right? Where Frazer's experienced the power. He's experienced, because I thought there was fear from Frazer. Like you said, he stayed a part of Team GB, and he's not saying he went the safer route, but then he's done a route that works for him, that it doesn't really truly make him uncomfortable. And Fabio was comfortable in the uncomfortable. That's something that he probably thrives off. But then Frazer now experiencing
remember the Adelaide fight?
What's that?
The Adelaide fight, he got cracked by Adelaide. He didn't give a fuck.
Doesn't care.
If you talk about dog, Frazer Clarke, if anything, got more hurt in that fight. Then I know Wardley had that cut, so it kind of give the opinion to everyone watching. Wow, look at the blood. But blood in boxing is just the norm.
It's normal.
But Frazer Clarke was the one. Frazer Clarke was the one who ended up on the canvas, and he stayed in it. And in the second half of the fight, if anything, he was the one who kind of turned it around a little bit.
That's the point I want to make, Lawrence.
It was
Good point.
Yeah, but that's what so Frazer Clarke was the guy who really had to show the heart, in my opinion, in that fight. I think the blood is just kind of, everyone just thought that made it look so much more severe. But no, in my opinion, if we're talking about dog, Frazer Clarke showed the dog, and I've seen him internationally. Like that guy, Frazer Clarke will say this himself. He's not the most naturally gifted. You know, if you were to say Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke, if they had both started boxing at the same time, probably genetically, Wardley is a lot more naturally gifted, power, speed, athleticism. Whereas Frazer Clarke, he'll say himself, he was a fat, chubby kid, and he was. I've seen the pictures, and even when we're on GB, he was that guy who had to work so much harder than everyone else. So I'm just, I know I'm probably sounding a bit biased here, but he's got that dog in him. I've seen it day in and day out.
The point that you're making about the dog, the point that you're making about the dog.
Come on.
Quickly, the point you're making about the dog, I think that's what's going to help him, because I do think there was a reservedness and probably a fear to go in there. Yes, they said something happened when they were bidding for the fight, this, that, and the other, and it kind of fell apart. But he's now been in there, had the experience, and said, "Hang on, we can do this." It's that team that 1-0 down and they score a late goal and say, "Hang on, I think we could win this." And I think there's a little part of Frazier now that goes into this one, says, you know what? Yes, I wasn't up for it as much in the first time, but you see the second one, let's go. You're going to see a different, and that's why I have Frazier. That's why I'm backing Frazier to win, because I feel that he gained confidence in that fight that he never had in the first place.
Okay, we got 2 for Frazier. Joey Knight, are you going to make it a clean sweep for Frazier?
Yeah, I'm going to back Frazer Clarke to win this one.
Exciting.
We're going to lose. We're going to lose. Just because this happened, we're going to lose.
Jai Opetaia versus Jack Massey. Opetaia is one of my favourite up-and-coming fighters to watch. I don't think his last performance was amazing from memory, but I think he's really good at everything. And I think he bangs really hard. He's got good footwork. He's tough. He's durable. Southpaw as well. I really like watching this guy, and I just don't know if Massey's going to have enough to stop him.
I think in Jack Massey, one thing that Jai Opetaia should be looking at, and this is a realistic possibility, is the option to try and get a stoppage. And then you can at least say, well, I did a better job than Richard Riakporhe did. And despite it not being at the moment someone that you're really in competition with, we've heard Jai Opetaia speak about his ambition to move up to heavyweight eventually. Obviously, Jack Massey went up to heavyweight, had that one fight against Joseph Parker, which went to a points decision. So if Jai Opetaia could stop Jack Massey in this fight, I think that would be somewhat of a statement. But to just win, I think because of the regard we hold Jai Opetaia in, I don't think it would be a real statement. I think it'd be quite expected for him to come through this one.
Yeah, I think Jai Opetaia is an absolute elite fighter. I really put him up there as a pound for pounder. And his fight that you talked about, with Bradis, I actually disagree with that. I think it might not have seemed like the best performance, but Bradis is a class act. Yeah. He's a great fighter. And I actually think, even though, he was essentially he's retired, it was the end of his career, I think he performed really well. He really showed why he was such a great fighter at his peak. I feel as if it was almost like one of his best performances in recent years. He showed everything. He showed a great chin. He showed he really showed every trick in the book. And I think Jai Opetaia went out there really wanting to make a statement, but actually he was met with fire basically. He wasn't met with an old man. He was met with a guy, looking to go out with his absolute best performance. And yeah, I just think Jai Opetaia though is so rounded, great movement, good power. The way he sets up his attacks, I just think he's an amazing fighter. And with regards to his opponent, I just think, yeah, he showed a good performance against Joseph Parker. He's definitely got a good chin, but he's very one-dimensional in what he does. He's now paired with Joe Gallagher, and I think he has been looking good, but I just think Jai Opetaia is going to have far too many skills in the locker. Massey's just,
I've seen Massey get hurt in one of his, it wasn't a big show. and he got clipped by a guy who was expected to walk through, and he got fucking hurt. And I'm watching this fight like, whoa, that moment of like, he's about to fucking throw it all away here. And he turned it round. So he's got good powers of recovery. And one thing Opetaia can't do is take him lightly, clearly, because he did come back and stop the guy within a couple of minutes, after being really badly hurt. So that really did impress me. So I know you can't take him lightly, but I think we're all leaning the same way, right?
Yep.
Ben Whittaker, should we move on to the little superstar, who has captured the imagination, particularly of the American audience, because whenever he fights, the Americans, they retweet the shit out of his clips. The English, on the other hand, a lot of them seem to complain about him. I seen him have that bit back and forth with the DAZN commentator who said, it's disrespectful, yada, yada, yada. Out of interest, just to gauge the room, the showboating, hate it or love it, lads?
Love it.
Listen, we're all in agreement that boxing's an entertainment business, and he's a bit of a throwback, like Eubanks and people like that. We love that in sports. It's about the entertainment. The boxing's only 50% of it. Whether it's a case of we've got two guys in front of each other, blood and guts, getting hit, getting put down, getting back up, or it's the showboating. Either way, we'll love it. It's just that simple.
For his opponent, I got Liam Cameron written down here. He had the split decision loss with Lyndon Arthur, who obviously fought Bivol not long ago. So it's a solid test. Got decent power in both hands. A lot of pro experience. Obviously, Ben with the Olympic background, only 8-0. So this guy's got a lot of pro fights behind him. It is his hardest test, isn't it?
This is definitely his hardest test. You might look at records and you might think, well, hold on, the last guy that he fought was unbeaten. But obviously, if you look at a lot of those fights were in Africa, and he was building up this sort of record at the time. And sometimes you can build these records, but ultimately you haven't really fought anyone. You haven't really mixed at that level. Whereas with Liam Cameron, you can literally see it in his last fight. A points decision loss to Lyndon Arthur, and a loss in which I myself felt the right man won, but there were people that questioned the decision and whatnot. He's got 6 losses on his record, Liam Cameron. Now, I've got a little bit of inside information on him because I actually had a mate that fought him, and this was the fight that ended up in controversy, and he ended up with the ban after it. Now, my friend was on a good little run of form, and he was boxing some good boys and sort of way above or towards at least English title level at the time. He then went in with Liam Cameron, gets stopped in 2 rounds by Liam Cameron. This is the one that Liam Cameron ended up serving the ban for because he failed the drugs test. By the way, that was for the drug he fell for was for a party drug. It wasn't, it wasn't a performance enhancing drug. At least I don't recognize it to be one. And that could also explain why when you look at Liam Cameron's losses, they all came before that failed drug test, barring the Lyndon Arthur one that's just happened. But the other 5 losses, they came before that failed drug test, and they all came on points. No one stopped him. Let's be honest. No one's really put much of a dent in Liam Cameron. So I do think that in this performance, unlike the last one where he took on an unbeaten guy and came through, this is the one that tells us where he's at this moment in time right now. Because believe me, if he goes in there and completely outcasts Liam Cameron, even gets a stoppage over Liam Cameron, I'm telling you, he's around British title level, maybe more right now.
The question last time was left because of the performance of how hard does Ben hit? Does Ben hit hard enough to bridge the gap? Because he's got the skills, but the power at the highest level does fucking matter. Even if we're saying Bivol doesn't have huge power, he's got enough to get people's respect. And there was a question mark because he did hit that lad with a lot of punches, and the lad did seem to come through that. And look, interestingly, Ben Whittaker has actually asked Bivol and Beterbiev for sparring, and they both said no to him. Make of that what you will, but it shows the lad's got balls. But does he have the power? I think is what we're going to be answering in this question.
Well, you know what's so crazy, right? It's interesting knowing. I don't know who's it. Is he still with Sugar? Is he still with Sugar Hill? Because he was with him before, and then after, I don't know if he's gone back to him because he had the injury. He torn his rotator cuff, and that injury there. I don't know if cause I always see him chopping wood, in his, like his training leading up to fights, you see him, he's chopping wood. He's one of those type heavy duty, but then the power is the biggest part for me because as the competition has got better, he's struggling to finish them off. And I thought the marriage with that Kronk style, with his style, was a great combination because he needs to know how to get the most power of his punches. And I was hoping that was going to continue, but I haven't really seen him. Was he there on the, has he been about? That's the question for me, because yes, he can win this fight. I actually believe he'll win this fight and he'll be fine. But it's what's next. The more he keeps getting these scalps, is the more they're going to put him in there with the Dan Azizes of this world. You know, when they start to progress, especially boxer, we banked a lot on this kid. So they're looking at him as a money man. The money man at the same time, while he has to be evasive, he has to kind of put people to sleep at certain times.
The problem is when you've got a light-footed style like that, planting your feet is kind of the opposite of what his whole style is, right? So he's going to have to pick and choose those moments of when to plant his feet and proper go through the back of their head, right?
But does he have the pressure though? Does he have the pressure right now of now he knows that America's watching and he's the entertainer? In the back of your mind, he must be thinking, well, I have to entertain these. Even though he naturally entertains, because even when he's wherever he is, even when the cameras are not rolling, he's still entertaining. You see the spars and you're like,
you know he's going to want to do it. He's going to want to do it more than ever on Riyadh season. Like, he's going to know, if I showboat here and really impress the crowd, the money and the bigger fights is going to come.
100%. And I think that if he comes through this fight, depending on in which way he comes through it, say he comes through it and it's a close fight, and it's almost like the one me and you were at, Brian, when we were watching against, I think it was Leon Willins, and it was a fight that he came through, but you did truly see him tested a little bit more. If he comes through it in that style, maybe they might look at the guy that's just had a decision win over Liam Cameron in Lyndon Arthur. If he comes through in impressive style, say he gets a stoppage here, something like that, I'd like to see Willie Hutchinson. I think the build-up for that would be absolutely electric. Could you imagine Whittaker against Willie Hutchinson?
That is a tasty fight.
We talk about guys that have sort of have proved their worth on the Riyadh season card so far. I don't think just because he's been stopped by Buatsi, we're going to see the last of Willie Hutchinson. So if Whittaker came through this in emphatic fashion, would it be a big jump? Yes. Could they be at risk of fast-tracking him? Yes. But would I love to see that fight? 100%.
Hell yes. Mate, wow. Willie versus Ben, that is a fucking dream fight for me. Like, I'd love that.
I think it's really interesting with Ben, because I think you're all right what you're saying. We're yet to see him really, take guys out in the power side of things. I think the problem he's got is the whole showboating style is so stuck in his DNA, because even as an amateur, like I've seen footage of him with world class amateurs where you don't normally do these type of skills, and he's doing it. It's like he's unbelievably talented, and I do think we haven't seen the best of him. But I also think as well, just a little bit of insight with Liam Cameron, because going back 15, 16 years ago when I was coming through the amateur ranks, Liam Cameron was one of the top guys. He was one of the standout names. And I remember seeing him being one of the top guys, and everyone was raving on about him. So, when he's had this issue with drugs and stuff, when he's been pro, I definitely think he's had a lot of lost years. He's obviously had a lot of issues and stuff like that, because he is himself extremely talented. And I think he's now come back into boxing. But that bridging that gap when you've had a lot of years of maybe not fully focused in the game, someone like Ben is kind of bridged that gap of skill and experience, because like I say, I'm much older than Ben, and so's Liam Cameron. And you can't get them years back when you've been kind of, not living the life. And fair play to Ben, he's young, he's hungry, and he's been consistent. You can tell he's that type of guy. But again, I know Ben pretty well. He was also the guy who I boxed with on my last ever call-up for England. So I think it's almost like a perfect fight to see exactly where Ben's at, because like I say, Liam Cameron is extremely talented. I think he's almost been a guy who's maybe wasted his talent, because like I say, I don't know what he's been through and what his issues been, but I definitely think he's wasted years for one reason or another. So I think it's a perfect fight. And I think this...
We're going to have to do the predictions now, lads. We're going to have to go to the predictions.
Come on then. Well, I'm
assuming...
I'm going to go with Ben, just because I think them years, I don't think Liam can make up for them years. I think he's too talented. I think Ben, I can't really see Ben stopping him, but I think he'll play with him. I think that's what's going to happen. I think he'll beat him on points.
KG?
It's going to be a golfing class. Ben Whittaker. Just unanimous points decision.
Enjoy.
I think we'll finally see Ben Whittaker drop a couple of rounds in this fight. Maybe, if it's a 10-rounder, I think Liam Cameron might pick up sort of 3 rounds in the fight, something like that. But I would pick Ben Whittaker on points.
I'm excited. I know Ben has obviously traveled the world, Team GB, but this is a whole nother stage. And this could be the making of this lad because he wants to show people what he's made of. And it's a hell of an opportunity for him to show his excellency something excellent. That's our first breakdown. We've obviously got the Eubank one as a separate one. But appreciate everyone who watched. Don't forget, Saturday, October 12th, Riyadh season is back. Bivol versus Beterbiev is live. We're going to be live on the Pain Game YouTube channel. We'll also be alternative commentary on DAZN. You can click the link below and get the pay-per-view from DAZN.com/True Geordie. Shout out to the boys. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the Pain Game YouTube channel. We'll see you on the next one.